podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
How you doing, Ed?
Very good. How are you?
I'm all right. Are you still on the West Coast?
I am still in Seattle for a couple more days, and I fly down to Vegas to do some gambling and watch some showgirls.
Are you going to do either of those things?
No, I'm not.
Are you going to go to some super boring work thing?
Almost certainly, yes. Super boring work thing with a bunch of dudes in suits.
Are you going to be in Vegas for the Derby then?
No, actually, I'm going to be in LA for the Derby, so I'll have to go find a bar or something like that.
All right, LA Reds, hit Ed up on Twitter and tell him where to go and watch the Derby.
I'm sure there's some LA Reds. I think I'm staying in Marina Del Rey, so there's bound to be a bar around there, Venice Beach or something.
Yeah, Marina Del Rey is red. That's the ultimate. Marina Del Red, more like.
Yeah, as the phrase goes, everyone knows that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, will Manchester be blue or red after the Derby? Looking forward to it, are you? We don't normally do a pod during the international break, but, it feels like too big a game not to do one.
Yeah, it does. I'm sort of nervous about the game, I have to say. I find it very hard to predict what's going to happen. I kind of feel like Mourinho and Pep both got the job, and then they both saw the fixtures when they came out, and they both thought, right, we've got to be ready by this date. The first game after that first international break. It's such a sort of pivotal moment in the season. It's the first game after the transfer window closes. But not that really affected either side who had all their business done, really, or essentially all their business done. Joe Hart shipping off to Torino aside. And yeah, I just wonder if they've just been like, I think the whole thing of like Mourinho playing Mata on the right has just been a trick. And he was planning to unleash Mkhitaryan in this game, although that hasn't quite gone according to plan.
Well, we talked a little bit last week of hoping Bailly wouldn't get injured. Or in fact, maybe half hoping Bailly's team might lose so they didn't have to go to the Africa Cup of Nations in January. But it doesn't look like he's injured, but Mkhitaryan's picked up an injury. Shaw left the England camp with an injury. Hopefully it's minor. Jose's been talking about Valencia not making it back in time from qualifiers in South America. So the international break, don't you love it? Brilliant. This one's my favourite one. Just totally ruins all the flow of the season just beginning, and then a bunch of people get injuries.
I can't help thinking that there's going to be some serious masterminding going on in this. There's going to be some serious, like, these two managers going up against each other, trying to pick holes in each other's kind of situations. What weaknesses do you reckon Mourinho will have seen in Guardiola's Manchester City up to now? Well,
they're still trying to bed in a back four, and I think that's probably the key one, isn't it? I mean, they do look really strong going forward. Raheem Sterling's having a great season. I mean, we've made fun of him for some time on this pod, or occasionally on this pod, for having 75 children and being in terrible form last season. But he looks like he's on fire. You know, the one saving grace for United, of course, is Aguero's ban. We can come on to that in a second. Rightly, in my opinion. But the back four is essentially a new back four, brand new goalkeeper. It looks like Bravo is going to make his debut, which I would be sticking some balls into the box and getting Fellaini in there big time. Fellaini might be injured, of course.
Doesn't just have to be Fellaini now. We've got options for knocking it long to the big man.
I know, Ibra could do some damage there. Seriously, Bravo's been brought in for his ability with his feet, and he's a decent goalkeeper. But, I think most Barca watchers would say that he's not the most commanding around his area and not the most comfortable with his hands with a high ball. So there's an option for United there. And the rest of them, there's some new players in there, aren't there? So John Stones is just bedding in. He's actually had a decent start to the season. Doesn't seem to be making a lot of the mistakes he was making at Everton last season. He wasn't always in the team at Everton last season. But it'll be a test for him, I'm sure. So I think that's the weakness. I think the tactical battle's a really interesting one, because in Real Madrid versus Barcelona games of the past, it was clear that Barca were going to keep 65% of the ball and Real Madrid were going to play on the break. Is that really going to happen this time round? I mean, United have been not hogging possession like they did under Van Gaal last season, but were very effective with it, but certainly not parking the bus, as you wouldn't expect a top team to do. So this how the pattern of the game plays out is going to be really fascinating.
Yeah, you'll hear Jay from the Red Mancunian podcast. I did an interview with him this week, which you'll hear later in the show, and he talked about something which I've seen mentioned a few different places, which is the game where Mourinho brought Chelsea to United in what was David Moyes' first home game for United, and he played without a striker and just looked more than happy to settle for a draw. It was so important to him, clearly, not to lose that game while he was still getting his feet under the table, essentially. I mean, you kind of feel like his feet are more under the table at United now than they were at Chelsea then. But I do wonder whether he would be really happy to just not let City get those 3 points. If both teams get a point out of this game, I don't think either manager's going to be gutted about that. So there is the option of parking the bus. But it just doesn't play to United's strengths, does it? Like, United's best qualities are in their attacking players, you would have thought.
Would have thought, but you could have said that about any of Jose's Real Madrid sides as well.
Yeah, so, I was just thinking that. Yeah,
it doesn't feel like United are naturally set up to park the bus. I think what will happen is a very similar pattern of play to that we've seen so far this season from United, which is when United attack down one of the flanks, it's only going to be that flank that goes. The other flank's going to tuck in. I think if it depends on whether Fellaini's fit or not, but we'll play 2 players in the centre of midfield. Pogba will sit a little bit and break when he can. United will just play not completely open. They will have a safety net there for when they're pushing forward to make sure they're not caught on the break during the transitional phase, and just classic Jose stuff, really. So we'll see if it gets to the last 15 minutes and United are 1-0 up. I think we can then assume that the bus may be parked.
The thing that I've seen a lot, in fact, at I'm GHTT says, am I oversimplifying it when I say their fullbacks moving into the middle will mean that Shaw, Martial, Valencia, etc. can just run the wings? Well, assuming that Shaw and Valencia are playing, this whole kind of question of Guardiola's inverted fullbacks, it does look like this is not the game for him to be doing that in, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever seen Guardiola change his tactics on the basis of another team.
Yeah.
So he's going to do what he does. They're not inverted in a defensive phase, though. So
it's just when City have possession that they kind of move into the middle of the park to make extra men there.
Absolutely, yeah. To always make that additional option for the passer.
So it's about maybe if you're trying to exploit that, you have to exploit that in transition,
which a Mourinho side is typically very good at.
Yeah.
We've not actually seen a lot of play from United on the break this season, so it would be theoretical, wouldn't it? Really, I mean, it's not as if United have been under bags of pressure from any of the teams we've faced so far. As you'd expect, given the quality of teams United have faced, this might be different. This will be different. And we'll see whether United can exploit it. It does make a difference who plays, though, of course, So Mkhitaryan, you'd think, is a perfect choice, really, to play on the break. All that pace, ability to run at players, ability to take men out, very neat in his passing as well. All can play wide and cross the ball in. So, he'd be a good choice, but it looks like he's out for 10 days. Doesn't seem like he'll be ready for the derby. We'll see. And then, the other players who may or may not play as a result, if you're looking to play fast on the break. Fellaini wouldn't necessarily be your first choice, would he? But he's obviously been good this season. He's injured. Will he be fit? Juan Mata, not always the best in those situations, is he? Tends to slow down play. But if Mkhitaryan is fit, he's definitely going to play. The 2 fullbacks of Valencia coming back very late, probably only arrive on Friday. And Shaw's got this little injury. Small muscle injury or something like that. Allardyce didn't seem to big it up as a problem. But, all big questions for United in terms of how they play.
Yeah, and then there's the Marcus Rashford question, isn't there? Scored that brilliant goal against City, which won the derby at their place last season and should have been the springboard for United to kind of take that 4th Champions League spot off City. But just Rashford looks perfectly set up to play this game. But it would be a complete shock if he started. I mean, in fact, the one position it wouldn't have been such a shock if he'd started would have been in place of Martial, but because Martial's form obviously dipped. But great news all round. He scored in the international break, and it was a lovely goal too. He was set up by Paul Pogba and slipped through past the last defender, and just a very beautiful, calm, composed, confident finish. So I think that could be, you could see how much it meant to him too. He really celebrated that goal.
He really did, and I thought Deschamps was, we've been pretty critical of Deschamps for his tactics during Euro 2016, but he said Martial was angry about how he had performed during Euro 2016. I told him I had complete faith in him. Don't worry, So
good.
Well handled, and maybe that'll be the boost that he needs to sort of kickstart his season. The Rashford question is a big one, though, isn't it? He was just so good, and maybe this is red-tinted glasses and nostalgia creeping in just a week after it happened, but I remember him being so good in that half-hour cameo he had last week that you couldn't leave him out, really. Danny Taylor's column in The Guardian's interesting this week. I was obviously reading that while eating my bowl of quinoa and hating on Wayne Rooney. He basically says, Allardyce has made a big mistake leaving him out. What's the point of holding him back? He's going to go and play in front of 2,000 people in an under-21 game at Colchester. It's exactly right for England. He needed to be in that squad because England haven't got a lot of game changers. And then for United, it's the same thing too, Are you losing out on too much by just having him come off the bench with 15 minutes to go?
Well, I think for England, much as I would love to see Rashford in the starting lineup, I think there is very, very sound logic to say let's not use him up when he's 18, like England have done with every kind of promising striker. How Wayne Rooney's career might have been different if he'd been managed a little bit more conservatively in his early years. I don't know how you could have done that then.
Yeah, but I don't think it was the England team that did that.
Yeah.
Really, I don't think so. Keeping him in the under-21s for an extra season, so he plays 5 less games. What difference is it going to make? Really,
you might be right there.
It's club level that's the problem. I mean, Michael Owen scoring in the World Cup 1998, younger than Rashford is now. Rooney scoring Euro 2002, younger than Rashford is now. Rashford pretty much the only bright light of England's absolutely dismal Euro 2016 campaign, and Allardyce is going into this game away in Slovakia, probably the hardest game of a really crappy quality group, and he's going to leave out what logically is one of his better players. There you go. Your man Allardyce.
From a United...
Get it up to the big man. Is Andy Carroll fit?
From a United perspective, there isn't necessarily anything wrong with... 15 minutes at the end of a game is one thing, but half an hour or 40 minutes at the end of a game is something very different. To have a game changer of that calibre who can come off the bench, who presumably has got his head pretty firmly screwed on and his feet firmly on the ground in terms of not getting a strop on about being left out in favour of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. It's hardly an insult, it's hardly a slap in the face, it's hardly being left out in favour of Jamie Vardy. It's a very reasonable thing for him to be on the bench at this stage of his career, and he can make such a phenomenal difference coming off the bench. And I think if it is 5 or 10 minutes, then that is disappointing. But if it's 30 minutes when United need a goal, then that is actually fine.
Yeah, sure. And it's not a criticism of Mourinho necessarily to say he probably won't start him. It's just it's a big question, right?
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
guy has been so good since he came into the team that it's very hard to leave him out.
It is, but as hard as it is to leave him out, it's that hard to get him into this side. You've got to leave someone, unless you're going to play him on the right wing and ask him. Then you've got Martial on the left and Rashford on the right. That is a lot of strikers being asked to do defensive work. You don't want to leave Ibrahimovic out for this game. I think that would be a really big mistake. I think it's a bad time to drop Martial if he's just scored, and on the right, I think it's the right time to bring in Mkhitaryan. So it's just very difficult. There isn't an easy answer, is there, with Rashford?
There is, but we'll skip over that one.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot
There's
about that.
a very easy answer.
Forgot about
anyway,
that.
Rashford's not going to start. There are other questions, though. So in the centre and midfield, that's a big question too for United. I think we can, it is going to be Martial, Ibrahimovic, probably Mata and Rooney up front. And the centre of midfield is going to be Pogba and one other. And let's assume if Fellaini's fit, he plays. If he's not fit, who comes in? Is it Michael Carrick? Not really played much this season. Is it Ander Herrera and United take a gamble on those two dovetailing well in a defensive phase of the game? Or who else? Schneiderlin come in for a game? Doesn't seem to be very popular with Mourinho right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I mean, we don't know, do we, how popular he is? I mean, he's not popular in the sense that he hasn't played yet. We don't know how he sees him, really, because he's got his first 11, hasn't he? We had a question about Michael Carrick, actually. At BillyBob1310 says, Fellaini and Mkhitaryan might be out, so do you reckon that we're going to go with Carrick's experience and quality, or might Schneiderlin get a chance? There is an argument for Carrick, isn't there? It's not quite clear what he's in the squad for, if he's not in the squad to play sometimes.
Well, yeah. And the experience, having played in so many of these derbies... cool head, all of that. It's just, at the back of my mind, he hasn't played very much.
Nope.
He's 34.
Yep.
At least Ferguson thought he was a notoriously slow starter to the season.
Everyone also that's ever seen him play also thinks that.
Yeah. So there are a lot of downsides to that. Schneiderlin would be an easy fit into the team. Wouldn't he?
Don't really
alongside Pogba.
Just don't really fancy David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne kind of alternating and Raheem Sterling kind of targeting Michael Carrick. That sounds bad to me.
Yeah, well, okay. So, that's midfield. So you think it's going to be Schneiderlin? Could be Herrera, of course. That'd be the bold choice. Herrera dropping slightly deeper and using the ball very, very neatly if United want to retain possession, because losing it's a problem, right? So
I think he will move heaven and earth to try and make it be Fellaini, won't he? So it just depends on how serious that injury is. And if Fellaini can play, I think he will.
Imagine how good the balance of the United side would have been if they'd ponied up another 30 million for N'Golo Kante.
Well, yeah, but then, I don't know, we've got options. It's not like we're...
I know, it's greedy, isn't it? It's greedy.
Yeah, that really is greedy.
But we've had 3 years of eating gruel. Now we want all the food on the table.
Left back Luke Shaw, presumably, and I guess Marcus Rojo as backup. A frightening prospect indeed.
And there's Blint. Blint, of course, in pre-season played a couple of games at left back.
Yeah, so maybe Blint there and then Smalling and Bailly.
Smalling comes in. But that's breaking up the centre-back partnership. That has worked well this season.
Yeah. And
despite Blint definitely not being a legend at United. I mean, whoever atted me with that one, please.
The thing about the Blint-Bailly partnership is that I've had this theory in the back of my mind that Guardiola is going to be the one to really find a way to exploit that specifically, and he'll set Sergio Aguero on Daily Blind in a really specific, targeted way. But of course, there is no Sergio Aguero, which is sort of a big deal for how that partnership is going to be tested. I mean, obviously, City have got plenty of good attacking talent, but missing Aguero is big.
It is big, yeah.
I cannot believe there are City fans arguing that he shouldn't be banned for this game. It is, and the kind of the anger that's being directed at the FA and it's typical Man United bias, instead of the anger at their player who elbowed someone in the chest, like in throat, viciously in the game before the derby in a televised football match.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's very typical to point the other way, So look, just separate these two things: the conspiracy and whether Fellaini should have been banned a whole bunch of times. Yes, for different games. Yeah, of course. If there's one player who's going to be banned from this game for having elbowed someone. I would have put a lot of money on it being Marouane and not Sergio Aguero. He doesn't really seem that type, does he? But it is Aguero, and it's right. And he was caught by the video ref, and he's rightly banned, right? So you can separate that out from the rest of the conspiracy nonsense, the FA having a Man United celebrating the Community Shield on their Twitter banner, or Fellaini not getting banned, or, this is all about United bias, or all of that is just a load of bollocks, isn't it? But
Wayne Rooney was banned for 3 games for swearing at a camera. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. I mean, the kind of interesting thing, the one genuinely interesting thing to come out of all of the furore around this is Mark Halsey saying on his Twitter feed that he had been told to say he had not seen things in post-match situations to try and get the fair outcome of a ban, basically. Gary Neville absolutely flipping out about this. And, of course, George Weah's cousin on Twitter putting a picture of Mark Halsey with some words over it and a load of people believing it was true. Again, it's just not funny anymore. It's not funny. Well, it wasn't really that funny in the first place.
It is quite funny. I mean, it's absolutely Route 1 comedy. I mean, there's no subtlety to this at all. And the funny is not in the picture and the words. The funny is in dumb people believing it over and over again.
But the thing is, like, if you could say that this is kind of making a point about the way people don't do any fact checking on the internet, but it feels like that point has just been made. So now all you're trying to do is like, oh, here, fishy. It's so Route 1. I'm against it. Against Route 1 comedy.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go back to not Route 1 and talk about Manchester City, because they probably won't be passing the ball more than about 5 yards, will they? How do you think they're going to play without Aguero? Given that he is banned, and rightly so, does Iheanacho just come straight into the side? Obviously, he's a goal machine, can't stop scoring, can he? Or do they play Sterling up front and bring Navas into the team? Does Nolito play up front and they bring Navas in, or Delphin? There's a few options they can play for sure, but not a 1-for-1 change.
No, but I think that their kind of strength in depth is part of what they've got going for them, isn't it, this season? I mean, Iheanacho is a goal machine, although I'm not sure he's off the mark in the Premier League this season. No, he's not. He's got 1 assist, but he hasn't got a goal yet this season. Nolito, though, has got 2, but he's been playing wide on the left. Yeah. You could even play De Bruyne up front. I mean, he's Pep, so he could play Nicolas Otamendi up front. You just don't know what Pep's going to do. But I guess play Nolito up front, play Sterling on the left, David Silva in the middle, De Bruyne on the right. That doesn't sound too shabby, does it?
Yeah, I mean, they've basically been playing a 4-3-3 this season. Yeah. So, in a Pep-style 4-3-3. So, Nolito, Aguero and Sterling have been their front three, and Silva, Fernandinho and De Bruyne have been through the middle, sort of, and it's a hell of a amount of firepower as a result, and goals from pretty much anywhere in that team. This does disrupt things a little bit. The least amount of change is bringing Iheanacho in.
Yeah.
The most amount of change is moving Nolito around because a whole bunch of other players change positions. But, they're so flexible, I guess it doesn't matter.
And the thing about that system is that just seems like a really good way to win a league, playing that system. But I'm not sure it seems like a great way to win this match, necessarily, because Pogba's presence is going to be so disruptive to them trying to play with just Fernandinho and then 2 of their little tippy-tappy, brilliant attacking midfielders.
Yeah.
That up against Pogba and Fellaini seems like something of a recipe for disaster for City.
Well, I've never been a big fan of this tippy-tappy nonsense, so especially when you give it to them and shove it up them. So, which I think Pogba will do. He'll cause them some problems. He'll cause them more problems if he manages to run ahead of the ball. And this is really important, because who's going to follow him? Is it Fernandinho? Not necessarily the most defensive of defensive midfielders, is he? And he's certainly not going to be Silva, and not likely to be De Bruyne. So he could get a lot of joy out of getting ahead of the ball, Pogba, but he needs enough security behind him in order to do that.
But he could also get an awful lot of joy, and I think this is much more likely to happen, driving with the ball at City, because Fernandinho's still got to go with him if he does that, and then he's going to have lots of options around him.
Right, and there's a bunch of tippy-tappy little men, so, I think it feels like the conversation we had before the 2011 Champions League final, when we were like, yeah, we're just going to beat them up. It's all well and good, isn't it, beating them up if you can get the ball?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be an enormous test, and in a way, I wouldn't be totally shocked if it ends up being slightly flat and the 2 teams slightly cancel each other out. Because of our Patreon campaign, which some of you have been very and backed us, and some people are a bit fed up with us the fact that it exists, but sorry about that. One of the things that the people who are fed up with it existing will get as a benefit is that one of the reasons that we've been able to put interviews in the show is because of the Patreon campaign, because I can put some bit more time into the show behind the scenes. So this is one of those. I spoke to friend of the show, Jay Motti from the much missed Red Mancunian podcast. This is what Jay had to say. All right, so by popular demand, I am joined by Jay Motti from the Red Mancunian podcast. So I'm just going to get this out of the way because I know the answer to this question, but I'm just going to ask it because people will not forgive me if I don't. When's the next podcast out?
Do you know what? If I had £1 for every tweet I got asking me when the next Red Mancunian podcast is out, I'd have at least 12 quid now. And people do ask me. I've even been asked this at Old Trafford. I don't know how people know who I am, but they come up and say, "Oh, when are you doing another podcast?" It's Craig's baby, the Red Mancunian podcast. Not literally, he has got a baby, but it's his baby. And the thing is, at the moment, we've all got kids, we all work, and we like to do it in a room together. We're not as good as you, Paul. We can't do it over different mediums. We get confused if you ask us to do something via Skype or whatever. It all goes wrong. We like to be in a room so we can insult each other properly. And the problem is, it's just getting together. I know this sounds like, I'm so busy, but it is just life gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah.
And then obviously for the games, most of us are sort of going to the games, watching the game, and then leaving, then going home afterwards. We're not even we don't have time even around the game, so it's been difficult because we've all been saying to each other, we need to do another one, we want to do another one, and before you know it, I think the last time we did one, David Moyes had just been appointed or something. It was that long ago. I think Marouane Fellaini was our marquee signing. It was ages ago. I can't remember where we're up to. We'd have to have such a recap. It'd probably take us about 5 podcasts to recap on what we missed. So we're not giving up. I think we're going to try and do something in the future, but at the moment, in terms of what it used to be, where we used to do it every week, anything like that, that's not going to happen. It's just when we can all get together, we'll try and get one out there. But we don't need us anyway. You guys have cornered the market in United podcasts. There's no point. We'll just be the poor nephew of the Rantcast. So that was part of the reason I think we got disillusioned.
Thanks. Cheers. Yeah, keep not doing podcasts. It's really helpful for us. No, I'm a listener first and a podcaster second, so I miss the show.
Very diplomatic answers. Very good.
So we're doing this. This is a derby preview show. Really, you're in the heart of it at the moment. You've seen a lot of what's gone on at City lately, and you've seen a lot of what's gone on at United. What do you make about where the two clubs are kind of both poised at the moment?
I think it's fantastic. I do. From a United point of view, I think it's great. From a neutral point of view, not that I'm too bothered about what neutrals think, I think it's great. And I even think from a City point of view, they've got to be buzzing as well, because I can't recall United and City being this sort of balanced, where both teams are almost equal. Both sets of fans believe their team is better off, and everything is sort of falling into place where it all compares with each other. United have got one of the most sought-after managers in the world. City get one of the most sought-after managers in the world. United have got a host of new signings, exciting signings that are, that'd be the envy of any team. City go out and spend a lot of money on new signings that, again, a lot of teams would happily have. United have Marcus Rashford. City will come back at you and say, we've got Iheanacho, although I don't think he's anywhere near as good. So it's all sort of, you look at it, it's all level playing fields. The points total from last season was level. So everything is almost geared towards it being like it was a few years ago when United had a bit of a wobbly point and City came up a bit when they took the title. It's almost like that level of, you can't put too much difference between the two sides, and that's why I think the derby is going to be crucial. I could see it being a derby that when you look back at the end of the season, you could say those 3 points or that draw or whatever, that made a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you expecting from the game? Are you confident?
I am. One thing that sticks in my memory, and this might be crackers, but do you remember when David Moyes took over? I know we've tried to erase the David Moyes era from our memories, and it's just like a big redacted document in our memories where there's a big black space where it's just sort of, you go from Fergie to sort of the FA Cup final under Van Gaal. and then and then Mourinho takes over. But if we can just try and sort of cast our minds back to the beginning of the dark ages, shall we say?
Yeah.
But remember, Mourinho came to Old Trafford. I think he was the first visiting manager with Chelsea post Fergie, and I have never seen a team come to Old Trafford and be more happy with the draw, I think, in my 30 odd years of following United. He came, I think he had no striker, he played for 0-0 and he got a 0-0, and at no point did he ever look like wanting anything more. I don't even think he wanted to win. It was just like he knew a draw would be a good result for him, so he went for it. And I'm wondering whether a little bit of that might creep in, where he might think early in the season not losing is more important than winning, so let's not lose. Now I know that people are going to be going, oh, you're so negative, Mourinho won't do that, he's this, that and the other, but he would, because he's a very practical sort of manager. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was thinking, part of him was thinking, let's just not lose this, and that'll be a good result for us. I don't think we should do that. I think we should go for it. Even if Aguero was playing, I think we should still go with it, because I think Bayer would have dealt with him. But without Aguero especially, and at Old Trafford, this early in the season, a win would be huge, and I think we should just go for it. I think we should do, but I expect it to be a bit sensitive, and I think Guardiola will be thinking the same as well. He'll be thinking, a point at Old Trafford this early in the season, without Aguero, not a bad result, so it might be a bit of a stalemate. That's what I think it could be.
So do you think that either of the managers would have spotted a weakness in the other team so far?
These guys, Guardiola and Mourinho, I think they don't take a piss without planning it out, do they? So I'm pretty sure they're going to have analysed they'll have had a team that's just analysing the opposition. I think Villas-Boas got his starting management, or not his start, but one of his first jobs for Mourinho was compiling DVDs and dossiers on the opposition. That was all he did. So I can imagine that Mourinho's had either one of his lackeys or himself has just been studying City. He knows Guardiola anyway. He'll have been looking at the way they've been playing. He knows City from obviously managing Chelsea in previous seasons. So I'm guessing he'll have worked out a weakness. Guardiola's obviously, it's been a little bit harder for him because he's just come into English football. He won't know United as well as Mourinho knows City. But again, he's another one he loves his tactics, analysing the opposition. So yeah, I think both managers will have looked for a weakness, and will they have found a weakness? I think the problem that Guardiola's going to have trying to find a weakness with United is, if you go back to last season, yes, there were weaknesses there. We favoured possession over penetration, all the rest of it. This season, it's not the same. It's different, and that's what Mourinho's got to remember as well about Guardiola, about City. They're not the same under Guardiola as they were under Pellegrini, but there are weaknesses there. I've seen a little bit of City, and I thought against Sunderland, who are probably one of the worst teams in the Premier League, they were a little bit lucky to get a win. And again, I thought against Stoke there were a couple of signs there that they didn't get it all their own way. So there are weaknesses there. And again, United, we're not infallible. We all know that. It's been a great sort of start to the season, and we almost seem to have forgotten about all the problems we had under Louis van Gaal. But we'd be kidding ourselves if we think this is it, we're sorted, we've turned a corner now, and now we're destined for the title. It's not the case. There are going to be a few ups and downs along the way, and I think Mourinho's going to have to do a bit of fine tuning. So yeah, I think there will be weaknesses, but I don't know if that's going to lead to a high scoring game. I think it could lead to a bit more of a stalemate, if I'm honest.
Okay. What have you made of United, particularly the kind of vibe around the club, the buzz on that Friday night game against Southampton was pretty incredible, wasn't it? It was
just, what a difference a managerial appointment makes. It was just like, it was like a party atmosphere, wasn't it? Everyone was just so happy, and obviously the game helps as well, because we saw goals at our end. I'm at the end where we didn't see a goal in the first half for about 7 months or whatever it was, and we saw penalties and goals, everything. It was just all happening. Yeah, the atmosphere was great, and obviously Pogba, I mean, I don't want to get carried away, but he looks like the greatest footballer in the history of association football. I'm just going to pull out. I got that just from his first 12 minutes against Southampton. That's what I made my mind up.
I'm with you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a toss-up between him and Rashford, isn't it, surely, into who's the greatest player ever. But yeah, there's a great atmosphere there. We've got options now at United. You look at it, and a few months ago, and you were thinking 1 or 2 injuries, and all of a sudden you've got... I know it's great when the youngsters came in, but you're thinking we're looking a bit lightweight, especially when you look at our bench at times. Now, you look at our bench, and it's full of either young internationals or older internationals who are great anyway. It's just, people like Mkhitaryan and Rashford on the bench. They'd walk into any team. They would. And when you've got that, you've got that at your club, coming from what we've come from as United fans, where we've had such a time of it watching negative football, you can't help but be excited. And I think the whole thing of having a new manager, new signings, a new style of football, and the real belief, the belief is there now. I just think it's a great atmosphere, and it's been great at United lately. The whole atmosphere, even on social media, going back 6 months, people were falling over themselves to come out with negativity. It was just constant stream negativity. You went online, everyone couldn't wait to post something and criticise this, criticise that, and I've been as guilty as that as anyone. Now it's the other way around. If you type into Twitter Zlatan or Marcus or Jose or whatever, you will just see a constant stream of United fans just absolutely loving it, and rightly so.
Fantastic. Well, assuming that you don't ever get together and do more podcasts, we'll get you back on before the end of the season, so people can get their little Red Mancunian fixes in amongst.
I know what you're doing here. You're getting me on so you can just remind everyone of how good your rantcast is. You say, listen, anyone out there pining for Red Mancunian, we'll get him on now and again just to remind him they're not that great after all. He just waffled on with himself for 15 minutes. There you go.
Exactly the opposite of that. Cheers, Jay.
No worries. Anytime, Paul. Have a good one, mate. Good chatting to you.
Always a pleasure to speak to Jay.
It is, but the thing is, Paul, we've both got jobs and kids.
I haven't got kids,
and I do a lot of work travel. But you've got other responsibilities. So, I think these Red Mancunian boys just need to pull their finger out.
I think
it's just not making enough. It's not 100% commitment. That's what I'm saying.
As Jay said, the fact that they have to do this in person, and we get to do it with you on the west coast of America, and me not very much not on the west coast of America, does make a big difference. But we'll definitely try and get a few more of those boys on throughout the season, and we'll speak to Jay again, because it's one of my favourite things to do is talk to Jay about football. I thought he made some excellent points about Mourinho, and that the fact that Mourinho will be really happy to get a point out of this game, because City not getting 3 points here is enormous, because the title race is likely to be so close. I mean, Chelsea, maybe I'm underestimating Conte and I'm underestimating that Chelsea squad, but to me, this does look like pretty obviously the clash between the two best managers and the two best squads in the league.
I think so. And, I think personal opinion, anyone who finishes above City wins the Premier League this season. They are the team to beat. The one question mark is how quickly can Guardiola get his team into his pattern of play and into their stride and winning, and they seem to have done that quite quickly, don't they? 3 games out of 3. I mean, I have to say they were pretty lucky against West Ham. It's not that West Ham were loads on top or anything like that, because they weren't, but they got a goal back, and Aguero should have been sent off and wasn't, and then City scored after that. And it could have been very, very different if the last 15 minutes of the game had been City down to 10 men and West Ham trying to chase an equaliser. We could have had a very different result there. But, aside from that, they've been pretty good. They smashed out Bucharest, didn't they? Well, at least in the first leg. Qualified comfortably for the Champions League. So they are looking good. That kind of early bedding in process doesn't seem to have taken much out of them. But you can say the same for United as well, We're looking pretty good, and that early bedding in process has been, a great leap forward from last season.
I wonder whether City fans are saying, but if you look, so United were actually quite lucky against Southampton. Southampton definitely had chances, and I mean, and they haven't really played anyone yet, so it's hard to tell. I wonder whether they'd be saying that same sort of thing about that. But I mean, both sides are up and running. I think, in both cases, more than I would have expected them to be by this point. I expected it to take longer for Pep to do his Pep business at City, and I think I expected United to be a little bit more stuttery, but that's just force of habit, really. It's because we've been so stuttery for the last 3 years. But no, they're both teams are ready to go, and it's fascinating that Manchester's the centre of the football universe for the next week, isn't it? There isn't a bigger story in football than the Manchester derby, and that is super cool. It's just a very... It's amazing that this battle is happening on our patch, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's not been a great season for either Manchester clubs. Oh, it wasn't a great season for either Manchester clubs last season. It wasn't the centre of the footballing universe, and it's returned. Great stuff. It's going to be greater stuff when United win, of course.
Of course, yeah, because we don't want to be second best in the centre of the football universe. That would be very painful indeed.
Second is nothing, and second to City is even worse than nothing. So, no, it's very important. And look, Jose knows this more than anyone. Because results is everything. So if you offered him a draw right now, he would absolutely bite your hand off for it. No doubt about that. But if United win, it's a massive boost.
Should we take some Twitter questions? We've got lots, as always.
Let's do it.
Should we be worried, says @Ripper48, about the long-term consequences, the long-term situation around Luke Shaw, given he's been sent home from the England camp as a precaution? I don't know whether we've got enough information to be worried, but Allardyce's first discussion around this was very odd. He sort of said, he's all right, he's just not really feeling well. He just doesn't seem to feel well. And there was something there where I was like, is there something going on? Because, Shaw's spoken very eloquently about how difficult the last year's been for him. Maybe this is just nothing and it was lost in translation between Allardyce and the rest of the world, and actually he's just got a little muscle knock, as you said.
Yeah, well, I mean, Allardyce, I think, cleared that up and said it was a tight muscle. And, there's I guess this early in the season, he doesn't want to take any risks. He's been a club manager. I'm not sure that too many of his team were in the England side over the years, but, he's been...
They were all internationals, though, weren't they, in the Bolton side?
Yeah, many of them were. And so, he knows what it's like, and I guess he doesn't want to take a risk with an important player. And he has got other options at left-back, I guess. Not great ones, but he's got other options.
Listen, don't you ever go at Broadway Danny Rose? I just wanted to say that because I'm trying to make his nickname be Broadway. It's never going to work. But it should. It definitely should. Odds on Pep and Jose needing to be separated by the fourth official, says they were Cones.
There will definitely be a moment. There always is, isn't there? Mourinho may try and provoke it.
What an amazing Freudian slip that was. I've just been rereading, after our chat last week on the Patreon, bonus stuff about football books. I've been rereading Zlatan's autobiography, and that first chapter about his time at Barcelona and his complete disrespect for Pep Guardiola. It's an amazing subplot to this game, how little time Zlatan has for Pep Guardiola.
I know. I mean, it feels like we might be the baddies here.
No question.
Yeah, and we need a bit of shit stirring. You might as well play to that. And it's a shame we haven't got Pepe in the side. Really, it's perfect for this one game, isn't it?
I don't know. They did lose very heavily a lot of times in that matchup with Pepe there. Maybe it's good he's not around. @J McCowan Esquire says, talking of us being the baddies, why is Pep managing Man City? Does he have no self-respect?
Well, he's got respect for his bank account, hasn't he? He's just a flat track bully, isn't he? He takes over teams with loads of money and a great squad of players and wins everything.
It's like such an insult to a man who is genuinely a proper football visionary. Like, I know he's on the other side and that is bad, but it's like the idea that all Pep can do is take good teams and make them better. That's not a skill in itself. Which player's haircut would you most like to see Pogba wearing next? Asks @Beware of the Pog. Personally, I'd go for PJ4's. Paul Pogba with some serious Phil Jones highlights, and Paul Pogba with a Daily Blind man bun. That could work.
Not really.
@Joe Greeny, serious question for you, Ed. Can Darmian be a better fullback under Mourinho?
No. I mean, I guess we could have more consistent performances out of him. I think what we get from Darmian is a defender's defender who still makes some mistakes, And if United are putting a lot of emphasis on attacking fullbacks this season, which I think we are, because the rest of it's quite narrow, then Darmian's just not the right choice for this team at all.
So we've had a question somewhere which I can't find, I'm sorry to say. But we had it's from @Wormito, who says, who would you play at right back if Tony V is not available?
Yeah.
Do we play Timothy Fosu-Mensah there in this game? I mean, I don't think that's a bad shout.
No, it's not a bad shout, but he's not played at all. But then again, none of the others have either. You know, how much pre-season football have any of Fosu-Mensah or Phil Jones or Darmian had?
Yeah. Well,
because they're your options.
Wow,
none,
Phil Jones,
basically.
are you considering Phil Jones an option at right back?
Theoretically. He's fit and available.
That'd be amazing banter if he just went, yep, I'm going. Tony V's not here. I'm going to play Phil Jones at right back. That seems like a good idea.
Yeah, he kicked David Silva into the stands.
Commander Chode says, what do you think of owners buying lots of clubs and sharing the resources, like signing players from each other, etc.? For example, the Watford owners.
Yeah, I think it's massively open to abuse. It's just moving players around and effectively pooling resources. And you know, not only is it open to abuse, it's kind of pretty disrespectful for the lower part of that equation, right? And I'm not sure who is the lower part of the Watford-Udinese equation. It seems like it's Udinese, but it's pretty disrespectful for that side of things, you know. And of course, it can't happen if we get to a situation where the two sides are in European football. So, you know, UEFA take a very dim view of this for all those reasons. You know, the competition factor, the fact that it's open to abuse. I think it's not a good trend we've got going there. You know, much like third-party ownership of players, I think this is one that will get regulated eventually.
We saw it with Frank Lampard and Man City, didn't we? That very strange deal where he signed for New York City and then ended up playing for Man City. I don't know. My definite knee-jerk instinct is this seems like it's gaming the system. It seems like that's what it's for. Maybe there's some benefits to it that I can't see, but they don't look too good.
So City are using it to kind of create a global brand around City football. You know, all the teams that they own wear the same colours, and they're called City. Something Melbourne City, Manchester City, New York City. Aren't they part of the Yokohama? Didn't they buy into them? It might not be a full ownership. It might be part ownership. But you know, that's one thing. And they haven't really used that system, aside from Frank Lampard, to kind of pool players. I mean, Chelsea are pooling players. You know, 38 out on loan, and they're kind of using the loan system to do the same thing. And it's kind of harvesting talent. In order to keep it away from your rivals, basically. You know, you're playing a numbers game to say we're going to see which of these rise to the top. And that's pretty abusive as well. You know, that's the kind of power law of footballers, that's saying, you know, the top few clubs will have all the best players and just decide on their careers. And that's anti-competitive, because it means that the clubs below that can't afford to play that game of pooling players and harvesting assets up, harvesting capital, if you like, are then going to be left in a worse situation. You know, you kind of get this exponential problem where all the best players end up at the top. You know, and it's not really happened in football yet. But if Chelsea, the way they're doing it, pooling players, and City, the way they're doing it, pooling clubs, and a few others start to do that, then all the rest have to follow. And I'm not sure that's a good thing for the structure of football altogether.
No, absolutely. And then you get this situation that you're getting now, talk about the structure of football, where B teams from the Premier League and the Championship were invited to join the Johnston's Paint Trophy, which is very easy to see as the thin end of the wedge for a kind of 5-division structure in the Football League, and, you know, B teams playing in the Football League and all that kind of stuff, which just ever more concentrates power in football and quality in football at the top of the pyramid.
Yeah. How many B teams actually took it up? Because last I looked, most didn't.
No, but some definitely did, and there were record low attendances at a lot of games in that competition because fans boycotted, because the Johnston's Paint Trophy, of course, is not a meaningful trophy if you support Man United, but if you support a team who that is legitimately by far their best chance of success, then this is actually quite a serious blow, because it means no Wembley for you know? Ian McIntosh talked about that on the Guardian Football Weekly podcast. It's really good.
No, that's right. So Everton, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Leicester, Swansea, Chelsea, Southampton, West Brom appear to be the Premier League teams that have entered that tournament. So Chelsea being the only one of the big clubs that have done it. But I'm with all the supporters who are fully against this. I think it's a really bad idea. I do think you have a problem, right? So if you look at it from a selfish Premier League point of view, there's too big a gap between the Premier League and what is now, is it an under-23 league now? They keep changing it, or under-21 league.
I believe it's under-23.
Yeah, right. They changed it again, right, to try and bridge that gap. But, if you're 23, you haven't made it into the first team of a Premier League team, it's not going to happen. So this is going to be fringe players dumped into that. It's still not going to solve the problem, which is how, when you're 18, you get into a Premier League side. So they're desperately trying to find a way to do that, because 30% of the players in the Premier League are English, and they're not filtering through into the main England team. I'm not sure that even strengthening the B teams or the under-21 teams will really solve that problem, because there's a lot of global recruitment. It's a very globalized sport these days, but they're still they're all trying to solve that problem, and so selfishly they see this competition as another way to get competitive games, but it just totally destroys the integrity of the competition.
Yeah, selfishly is absolutely the right word, isn't it? I mean, something needs to be done about the Premier League development squads, but what needs to be done is that football at lower down levels just gets destroyed in its wake, because this is a Manchester United podcast. You were joking like, oh, we the baddies earlier. We may or may not be the baddies in this particular rivalry, but we definitely are when it comes to like evil mega conglomerates ruining football. Lower division football is actually important. It isn't something to just discard to serve the elite level of the game, because it serves a vital social function. And
oh, sure, and it's for that reason, and so the Premier League don't care about it because it doesn't generate them any money, and actually it's not a proving ground for young players either, right? So not enough players come out of the Championship, or not many players come out of the Championship and lower leagues and come and make a career of it at the Premier League. A few,
yeah, but it's the exception,
for sure,
isn't it?
Yeah, they're definitely the exception. So there are many reasons why Premier League clubs just couldn't give a toss about the lower leagues. But you're right, social function, centuries-old clubs, or century-old clubs, and football is not just the Premier League. This is important. It's important, and England's one of the few countries in the world that manages to sustain 4 professional leagues. And it, of course, you get great crowds going down even further than that. We talked about Salford last week. Top of their league, FC United and Manchester, about midway through that league, getting crowds of more than 3,000 every week. That's real football and important.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, episode 2 of the Salford City documentary, much better than the first episode. Still very docu-soapish, but much better watch than the first episode. Having been very mean about the first episode, I thought I should say something nice about that, because it was quite entertaining, that second one. Anyway, in a completely different subject, this one's for me, Ed. At Gary_Dunn says, Rocket League or Star Wars Battlefront? You're talking about literally hundreds of hours versus about 10 hours in terms of my experience there. My answer to pretty much any Rocket League or question in video games will be Rocket League. At Shivam_Chopra says, if you could choose one of Rio or Vidic at their prime to partner Eric Bailly in defence, who would you pick? Hashtag friend of the Rantcast. Yes, you are.
I pick Rio every time because he's the better of the players. I hope in time we, history remembers Rio as one of the real greats of his generation, because he really was.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely everything as a central defender.
Yeah, and I say this every time this comes up, but I've never seen a player who makes the player alongside him look better than Rio Ferdinand. Everyone who ever played alongside him in the last 10 years of his career basically looked good. So yeah, the perfect partner for just about any centre-back. At United_Phil says, is there a risk that with De Gea seeing less of the ball this year, he may lose some of those magical powers? He definitely hasn't had to pull off a single wonder save all season.
No, but his levels of concentration are great, so I'm not worried about that. He can do nothing and then pull off 3 or 4 against City at the weekend. Hopefully he doesn't have to pull off any.
At La False number 12 says, are we all on loan from Chelsea and just don't know it? We are. Everyone's on loan from Chelsea.
We're in Elon Musk's sort of, virtual reality world where none of this is actually real.
What did he say? Like it's like a non-trivial chance, or it's incredibly unlikely that it actually is real.
Yes,
what was it?
Yeah. But so basically, his theory is that just play it forward. Exponential growth in computing power. In a few years' time, we'll be in a world where it's impossible to tell the difference between reality and virtual reality. Play that logic forward, and basically, we're probably in a virtual reality world now. Just picking our time and place. I tell you what, if that's the case, the time and place is still going to be Old Trafford. It's still going to be Old Trafford on the 10th, isn't it?
Absolutely. All right. Talking of which, let's make this the last question. At Lucas_M United, what's your most favourite derby game? There's been some good ones.
I mean, for various different reasons, all the ones where we scored in the last minute and broke City's hearts.
Yes. Of those, which was your favourite? I think Scholes for me. The Scholes header, that might be my favourite one of those. Yeah,
I mean, I think that might be the wildest celebration. I mean, obviously it's tainted because of who scored, but the 4-3 is still magical as well.
Amazing.
And Rooney's overhead. We talked about this just before we started recording. I was watching.
I can't believe you're bringing this up.
I just got to. Because it's brilliant.
This is an agenda. This is what an agenda looks like.
It's not an agenda. I laughed out loud when I watched it because of #agenda. Right, so I was watching the Rooney goal again, the overhead kick. His most famous goal, his best ever goal, a wonderful moment, and just a sublime piece of skill. From a player about at his peak. But in the build-up to that goal, I was watching it from another angle and had all the bit. And Berbatov's just beautiful in the build-up. He's all soft touches and moving the ball around. He completely orchestrates space. There's a couple of nice flicks from Scholes. And he's zipped into Rooney, into his feet. He goes back to goal and it bounces off his foot, loops about 8 foot in the air and goes about 10 foot away from him, but falls to a United player and it's played out wide. And the ball comes in from Nani and Rooney does the overhead kick. And it's just like it's Rooney in a microcosm, isn't it? Just an awful first touch, a total Rooney first touch, and then a wonderful overhead kick to win the game. Yeah,
that was pretty amazing, that moment. Cantona, I have memories of Cantona in the derby. They're all a bit hazy because they happened in the 90s.
He scored a couple, yeah. A beautiful comeback when Roy Keane scored twice as well. I remember at Main Road. That was a great one. And of course, there was the time we smashed them 5-0 as well. But
the comebacks and the late wins are better than those, really, aren't they? Especially because this is not a braggy thing, but the mismatch between the two sides at the time was so significant that really us battering them was just what was supposed to happen, really. But it was the kind of the dramatic moments there. And that Michael Owen goal is really, really a special moment. And I know he's Michael Owen and he's a right old div, but that really was amazing. Did you see what he tweeted earlier this week? It must have been a joke. He must have known what he was saying when he tweeted, I love the way Klopp's going about his business. Yeah. There's nothing worse than having senior pros around not contributing anything.
I know. I'm like, he's intelligent enough to know. I think he was saying that with some irony. Yeah. I think he was. Because, Newcastle, Stoke United, he just wasted. Talk about stealing a living. Yeah. Did it for the latter half of his career, didn't he? So, yeah.
But he gave us that one moment, and it was genuinely really special.
After this, I'm going to go off and watch them and get all worked up with a bunch of last-minute goals. Come on. To be honest, I'm not sure whether I'd want United to win it last minute. I mean, or just smash them 5-0. I think a 5-0 drubbing right at this stage in the context of everything would be pretty good.
Yeah, that's totally different now. Now a drubbing in either direction is much more significant because the teams are so obviously matched punch for punch at the moment that if we smash them, that would be incredible. Imagine the ridiculous level of expectation there will be around the club. I mean, I think I'm going to actually predict, because we've got to do predictions, I'm actually going to predict a 1-1 draw and a slightly less, because we talked this game up for an hour, but I'm actually slightly afraid that it's going to be a bit less exciting than we all think it is. Although that almost feels like it's a protection mechanism saying that, because when you think about all the the moving parts involved in this game. Ibrahimovic, De Bruyne, Mourinho, Guardiola, Pogba, there's an incredible level of quality. All right, 2-2 draw. 3-2 win to us. Last minute, Ibrahimovic. Come on.
Gosh, you worked yourself into a ridiculous prediction over the course of about 30 seconds. Yeah,
I worked myself into a shoot there, for sure.
So I wonder whether there won't be goals. Seriously, City have scored 2 or more in every game, apart from that game against Steaua Bucharest where they just didn't care anymore, right? So I think City will score goals. I know United been looking tight at the back, but this is a team that creates all the time. So it'll be a real test for Bailly and Blint. So I'm going to say 2-2. I think United will score as well because, I'm not sure I fancy City's back line.
So, all right, you've gone with 2-2. I've gone with 3-2, a last-minute Ibrahimovic winner, and absolute bedlam at Old Trafford.
Oh, it would be sweet.
It really would be sweet. One thing that I can predict with absolute certainty is that we're going to be back after the derby, but it won't be for a couple of days after the derby because of Ed's travel arrangements. But we will get you a podcast in the sort of middle of the week after the derby. But we will definitely be here and we'll definitely be looking at that game and its implications for the title race and whether the title race will be over by the next time we speak to you because United will have won 10-0 and that will be an irredeemable blow for Guardiola's self-esteem and he'll have left the club in a huff realising that he should never have joined them in the first place.
Yeah, very good. Haven't we got I was going to say we've got a vacancy in the under-18s but it's just been filled, so
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I could have offered him that job, but yeah, no, sorry, Pep.
I don't know anything about that chap that's filled that job, but he's comes with a good reputation, and it was a very good first performance. Angel Gomez with a couple of assists in that game, getting a lot of attention
after scoring a hat-trick the week before.
He's on fire.
He's a very good player.
Right. So anyway, you can catch us on Twitter, Facebook, all the usual places, patreon.com/runkcast if you want a little bit more show, because Patreon backers will get 10 or 15 minutes more show about some subject from the wide world of the world, starting, just about now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.